chlorophyll in animals? Yes, some animals photosynthesize. We all know that some plants use chlorophyll to make food. But did you know that some animals do too? Wait, really, I hear you say? Yes, it's true. Some animals photosynthesize to produce their own food, or at least a significant portion of their food. So which animals are they, and how do they do it? There are actually several animals that photosynthesize. But first, a quick refresher. One of the organelles in plant cells that differentiate them from animal cells are called chloroplasts. Plants use chlorophyll produced in the chloroplasts to absorb sunlight, which is then used in the process of photosynthesis to turn carbon dioxide and water into oxygen and sugars, or glucose, used for energy. Plants then use this energy to grow and produce flowers and fruit. Okay, so back to animals. Do they have chloroplasts then? Well, we'll answer that question shortly. The yellow-spotted salamander, Ambystoma maculatum, is the only known vertebrate whose embryos exhibit photosynthesis. This is due to a symbiotic relationship with the algae Euphila amblystomatis, which lives inside the salamander's eggs and provides the developing embryos with oxygen and carbohydrates produced through photosynthesis. The embryos, in turn, provide the algae with nitrogen-rich waste and carbon dioxide, creating a mutually beneficial relationship or symbiosis. Yellow-spotted salamanders are the highest developed animal species and the only ones among vertebrates whose embryos can directly benefit from photosynthesis. Usually, the immune system of highly developed organisms prevent the symbiotic behavior from occurring. Other invertebrate photosynthesizing animals are some sea slugs. Sea slugs from the superorder Sacoglossa are sap-sucking sea slugs that live by ingesting the contents of cells of some algae. 3 such sea slugs are marine mollusks from the family Plancobranchidae. The first, the eastern emerald sea slug, Elysia chlorotica, is found in the shallow waters of salt marshes and tidal pools along the east coast of North America, from Nova Scotia in Canada down to Texas and Florida in the USA. They eat the algae Voteria litoria and ingest the algae but retain and incorporate the algae's chloroplasts into its own cells. Amazingly, this sea slug not only retains functional chloroplasts from the algae in its own body, but produces chlorophyll from them so that it can photosynthesize and sustain itself for a prolonged period without eating again, for up to its whole lifetime of 10 months. The green from the chlorophyll also aids the sea slug in being camouflaged amongst the algae, thus allowing it to evade predators. The second sea slug is the Mediterranean solar-powered sea slug, Elysia timida. It is found in the Mediterranean Sea and Atlantic Ocean near the Cape Verde and Canary Islands. It feeds on algae such as Acetopolaria acetabulum and Padina pavonica. Similarly to Elysia chlorotica, it sequesters the chloroplasts from the algae into its own cells, allowing it to photosynthesize and derive energy from sunlight, in this way for up to 45 days. The sea slug can regulate the light exposure it receives by folding and unfolding the lateral or side flaps on its body called parapodia for optimal photosynthesis. The third sacoglassan sea slug, the lettuce sea slug, Elysia crispata, lives in the tropical parts of the western Atlantic and Caribbean. It has very frilly edges to its parapodia, which makes the slug resemble the curly kinds of lettuce, hence its common name. Unusually, where the other sea slugs have diets limited to 1 or 2 species of algae, these sea slugs as adults consume many different types of algae, including Vaucheria litoria and many others. They retain chloroplasts from these algae in their parapodia. These chloroplasts produce energy through photosynthesis and have been found to function efficiently for a little over a month. Another sacoglassan sea slug, but this time from the family Costacealidae, is a leaf sheep sea slug, or Costaciella kurashimi. It is found in Japan, Philippines and Indonesia, and some parts of the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. These sea slugs are tiny, they're 8 millimeters long, and they live from 6 to 12 months. The sea slug feeds on Avrainvillia algae, which are fuzzy algae growing in areas with soft substrates or surfaces, such as silt or fine sand adjacent to coral. The sea slugs suck out their chloroplasts from the algae and use them to produce food via photosynthesis. The chloroplasts stay within their body for up to 10 days. Even though the period of active photosynthesis is relatively short in this case, chloroplasts provide a nutrient storage or larder that enables the slug to survive without food for an extended period of time. In all of these cases, the sea slugs make use of a process called kleptoplasty, in which the sea slug eats and digests all parts of the algal cells, except for the chloroplasts, which it retains in its own cells. These stolen chloroplasts, which are then called kleptoplasts in this instance, remain functional and photosynthesized to produce sugars and other compounds that can then be used by the sea slug for energy. One of the most fascinating questions in kleptoplasty is whether the animal or sea slug can maintain the kleptoplasts without the nuclei of the algae, which are normally required to repair and regulate chloroplast functioning. In Elysia chlorotica, there is evidence that the slug may have incorporated genes from the algae into its own genome, that is, its own genetic material, to help maintain the chloroplasts. If so, then it appears that horizontal gene transfer is occurring, or in English, gene transfer between two different, very unrelated organisms. If this is so, this would be a highly unusual form of endosymbiosis, where one organism lives inside another in a mutually beneficial relationship. It also means that these genes will then be transferred to their sea slug's offspring. Research is ongoing as this has implications for bioengineering and synthetic biology, such as designing organisms that can produce energy from light. Scientists are hoping to be able to harness or replicate these mechanisms in other fields, including renewable energy and sustainable food production. Other animals using kleptoplasty are two species of marine flatworms from the order Rhabdocula, namely Biocolelia solaris and Pogania piranigulgus. These flatworms extract chloroplasts from diatoms, which are single-celled algae, and digest the remainder of each diatom. These chloroplasts, now kleptoplasts, photosynthesize producing sugars for the flatworms. Each of these chloroplasts continue to photosynthesize for about 7 days. Interestingly, it appears that kleptoplasty evolved independently in these two species of flatworms, which are not very closely related to each other. And sister species which are more closely related do not have kleptoplasty. A further animal displaying kleptoplasty is another sea slug, but this time an aeolid nudibranch from the family Phaseolinidae. Aeolid means that the nudibranch has serrata growing on its side and back, which resemble soft horns, and which increase the surface area of the nudibranch for greater gas exchange during respiration. This particular nudibranch, Pteraeolidia ianthina, has serrata which vary from purple to blue to brown, and even sometimes green, giving the nudibranch the common name of blue dragon. It is found on the east coast of Australia and can inflict a painful sting if you put your finger in the way, as it has no metacysts or stinging cells in the tips of the serrata. The blue dragon nudibranch feeds on hydroids, which are small plant-like animals related to jellyfish, sea anemones, and coral. These hydroids can form symbiotic relationships with algae, such as zooxanthellae, which are single-celled photosynthetic algae which also live within corals. The zooxanthellae, which live inside the hydroids' tissues, provide them with nutrients. In eating the hydroids, the nudibranchs capture these zooxanthellae, which then provide up to 90% of the nudibranch's energy requirements through photosynthesis. They receive in return nutrients, carbon dioxide, and an elevated position closer to sunshine for more effective photosynthesis. As with many species, these sea slugs and flatworms are being influenced by human activity, causing reduced habitat and climate change, with sea slug and flatworm numbers reducing over time. Plastic pollution and strong wave action from cyclones don't help either. The race to learn as much as possible is on, not only to learn valuable lessons from these marine creatures, but also to protect them into the future. As with many other species too, the conservation of biodiversity, ecology and habitat are crucial to their survival, and quite possibly to ours too. It certainly would be a tragedy to lose access to such interesting and potentially beneficial knowledge too, before we even have a chance to research and understand it properly. Well, that's it for this video. Nature certainly knows how to challenge what we think we know about the world. And isn't it just fascinating how the animals take the plant's chloroplasts and use it for themselves? If you made it to the end, put one thing in the comments that you found most amazing about these photosynthesizing animals. And if you found this video interesting, please like and subscribe. This is a free way to help us grow and bring you more interesting topics. Until next time, enjoy!